go to his father, but he gets around again to the answer. That's one parable. And these three parables, this one now about the tenants, Luke chapter 24 parable of the wedding banquet, they are in response to the leaders of the Jews, the scribes, the elders, and the Pharisees, all conspire together and say, Jesus, you are not the king. You have no right to come to the temple. You have no right to take authority over the people. We question you. We question your credentials. Who do you think you are? And we begin to show their hostility and want to destroy Jesus once said king. What we have in these parables is Jesus exposing what's in their hearts and exposing what's really going on at that time in his ministry. And I think we will learn three things tonight from this parable. And the first is how Jesus sees humanity. Jesus' understanding of all of us, of the human condition, of the Jewish people of his own time, their leaders, but also of you and me as well. So let us dive into this parable, the parable of the tenant. As I can see, there are only three of Jesus' parables that crop up in all three of the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And it's quite surprising. Jesus told so many stories of a point. He told so many parables. It's not surprising that only three of them occur in all three of the synoptic gospels. There's the parable of the sower, there's the parable of the mustard seed, and there's this one, the parable of the tenant. And I think the importance of this story needs to be stressed. It's there in Matthew, it's there in Mark, it's there in Luke. It was a key moment in Jesus revealing not just who he was, but who the people of his city Jerusalem were, who the people of his planet are. Because you see, they have a choice, and we have a choice. And our choice is to enthrone Jesus Christ as our Lord and King, or to try and get rid of him, to try and remove him. And that's what's behind the parable of the tenant. In Matthew, Jesus is called here, or in the meaning of the parable, we talk about the son of the owner of the vineyard. He is there, and the king of the son. But in Mark and in Luke, the word still word used. It's the Greek word agapetos. It means the beloved son, the only begotten, the one and only son. The one and only son of the owner of the vineyard. The beloved son. The Matthew uses this word. He uses it around the time of the baptism of Jesus, where God identifies that this one who is stepping into the waters of the river Jordan, who is embarking on his mission of reigning and of saving, this one is God's son. This is my son whom I love. Listen to him, pay heed to his words, obey him. Now this son is not stepping into the waters of baptism. He's stepping into the waters of death. He is hours away from arrest, trial, and execution. And he tells the story recorded by three of the gospel writers about why the human race hates him and wants to get rid of him. The tendency of those who run the temple is about to be terminated. The power and the pomp and the majesty of the leaders of the Jews is about to be terminated. The tendency of the people of Israel, it too, is about to be terminated. God is going to destroy his temple. God is going to destroy that city. God is going to annihilate Israel as they reject his son, the king. So how does God, how does King Jesus really own universe. It doesn't belong to us. Do you see yourself as answerable and accountable to God and living on His earth? Do you see yourself as His guest? Or do you strut about imagining that you own your life? There was a bill before the Scottish Parliament last week where human beings were saying, my life, my choice, I get to choose if I want to die. A young man in his 50s who was not terminally ill traveled to Switzerland last week and was helped by doctors who forgotten what the job of doctors is. He was helped to commit suicide in Switzerland because he was afraid that sometime in the future, he was 10 or 50 or 20 or 30 years on, he might not enjoy the quality of his life enough to want to go on. It's a strange civilization that seeks for helping a man by destroying a man. Mom or dad needs love and needs help, and he and his family should be finding ways to see that life is worth living. Not to imagine that life is so worthless that at the push of a button or ingesting a pill, it can be ended. We are tenants, not owners. Even our bodies were not made by us. Do you have property of your body? Did you buy it? Did you make it? Or do you belong to God? The way we look at life and the way we look at the universe is us-centered, rather than God-centered. And that is moving. And this parable seeks to turn the right way around the whole universe so that we see things as they really are. That there is a creator, that we are accountable, that Israel was accountable, the leaders of Israel were accountable, and we Gentiles who live 2,000 years later, here in the northern province of Europe, we too are accountable. We have responsibilities. Think of our land of Scotland. The gospel came to Scotland a very long time ago. We're in the 21st century now. But think about how long the gospel has been in this land of ours. How grateful for the glory of God. Wow. What about Western Europe, the civilization of Western Europe? It's time. It's time. We aren't even producing more children than our adults anymore. We are dying civilization. We seem to be under rejection. Maybe one of the most worthless civilizations that there's ever been, maybe one of the best educated, and yet if you go into the cities of Western Europe, you will see poverty and child abuse, you will see cruelty, you will see neglect. You don't have to leave a Burn Village from Strathclyde to see that. You don't have to leave a town like Dingle to see that. I saw with my own eyes in the last week, somewhere in this town, who was undoubtedly a prostitute going about her work. How will we have Christianity? We are a bad world. And we need to learn what verse 38 of this parable says, that even though tenants rebel, even though they imagine they can take over the universe, they are wrong. When the tenants saw the sun, they said to each other, this is the year, come, let's kill it and take his inheritance. Let's take the universe to ourselves. Let's take our lives to ourselves. Let's take our destiny to ourselves. Let's throw off the shackles of God and His Word. described in this story, it could also be described in us, it could be described in Scripture. But Jesus sees this through a spiritual eyes. What I get back from not just from this parable itself, but if you knew your Old Testament Scripture as well as the people of Jerusalem would have known it 2,000 years ago, when you hear this parable, Jesus says, listen to that parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard. The minute you hear these words, your mind will go as sure as anything through the prophecy of Isaiah and to Isaiah chapter 5. And as you think about it, you will think to yourself, oh, yes, I remember when I was in Sabbath school learning about the Old Testament Scriptures as a young Jewish child. I remember we had to read that lovely poetry from Isaiah. And what did it say again? Isaiah planted a vineyard, and he gathered, and he put a wall around it, and he planted of stones, and the vines were there, and the wine press was there, the wine vat was there. There was no fruit in my beloved's vineyard. There was no harvest in my beloved's vineyard, because Israel is unfaithful. Israel has forgotten its covenant. Israel doesn't listen to God. Israel doesn't believe. Israel doesn't repent. That's what Isaiah has to say about the matter in Isaiah 5. Jesus tells this parable and he's taking up the words and the verbs lifted straight out of Isaiah chapter 5. And if you were to put the Greek version of Isaiah 5 beside the Greek version of Matthew chapter 21, you would say, these are copied one from the other. The same words, in the same order, in the same places. Jesus is retelling an Old Testament story of judgment on spiritually unfruitful Israel. Not in the hand. And a real harvest in Israel's arrived. This isn't one of those little harvests that you can write off and forget about. This is the last time to bear spiritual fruit because the day of God's judgment over Israel has arrived. This is the last week of the life of the Son of God. If there's not going to be spiritual fruit now, there never will be. All around it, at a wine press. So you would head of the grapes in one part, and then the grape juice would flow down and be collected in another part. And then you could ferment it and make wine. He did all the work. He put a tower there. He put a place for them to secure. The animals wouldn't get in. The people couldn't come and steal. They would be safe and secure. A place to rest, a place to shade. It was all done at the expense of the owner of the vineyard. And he rented it out, he let it out to tenants. But yet they don't faith. They don't want to owe anything to the owner of the vineyard. Tenants are accountable, aren't they? The tenants are to be ended. You're accountable. You by all. We are more accountable to God than I. We owe a sense of gratitude. We owe everything to God. But from the beginning of the Bible, from the book of Genesis, we have Adam and Eve listening out to God, but to rely on to Satan, to the serpent, and the problem of humanity. It's explained in the early chapters of the book of Romans. The problem of humanity is that whether we're talking about the Jews or all the other nations that God does, we choose our way. We choose our path. We choose sin. And therefore we are guilty. We are in debt. We are in arrears to God. And God may well run out of patience with us and remind us one day, you are a king. You don't own your life. You don't own the universe. The astounding thing in this parable is how patient the owner of the vineyard is. He could have dealt with these rebellious tenants right away, but he didn't. He was servant after servant. Some were beaten, some were stoned, presumed to death, some were definitely murdered. And yet he sent more servants, and at last he sent his own son. It's extremely patient management of dodgy times. No normal owner of a property would do this. No reasonable person would do this. No human owner of a vineyard would do this. You'd sort this out. You'd send in the bears. You'd send in the heavies. You'd send in people with weapons. But no, the owner of this vineyard seems to conduct with provocation after provocation after provocation, because, of course, this owner is God. He is peace. And he was withholding his final judgment throughout the ages of humanity. Judgment does not follow the law. It is not. Jesus Christ, the King, sees humanity. But secondly, we want to notice how the King sees his own mission. And the King sees himself and his role. So again, notice verse 37. Last of all, after sending servants who had used to be repaired, last of all, early he would send his son to them. What pathos in this world. They will respect my son, he said. The man who told this story is the one who knows he is the beloved Son of God. The man who told the story, Jesus, has been in fellowship and communion with God his Father throughout all eternity. He knows he loves the Father. He knows the Father loves him. And he's telling this story to people who are plotting his death. They will respect my son, he said. Can you imagine the faces? Can you imagine the thoughts? Can you imagine the hearts of those who heard this parable and understood what was being told to them screen? God is holding back from his anger. But this is the beloved. This is the beloved Son. And God calls his beloved Son not to be comfortable, but to go on a mission. God calls his beloved Son to leave heaven and to leave security. You are my Son. In you and with you I'm well pleased. Now go and suffer. Go and risk it all. Go and die. Experience pain and humiliation, because I, the Father, am willing to give up your Son, your only Son, whom I love. And as God's word said, called to suffer, called to die. This is the assignment. Islam is the growing religion in the world. And some people believe that in many European countries, in the lifetime of many who are here in this venue tonight, it will become the dominant religion in many parts of Europe. That may be the case in France, that may be the case in England, the way the demographics and trends are doing in 30, 40, 50 years. I don't know. What I found very interesting is that Islam tells a lie about Jesus Christ. Islam says Jesus didn't die. He didn't die on the cross. And that, my friends, is the path that Islam is a false religion invented by Satan. Because it is Satan who wishes to test whether God was willing to send his Son, to bear our sin, to suffer, and to die. It's Satan who has an interest in all the gospel stories. The gospels are united in this. History is united in this. There is no part of the Bible, Old or New Testament, that weakens this fundamental claim that God became flesh, God became man, and God as a man suffered for sin and bled and died. It's absolutely a core Christian belief that the Son of God died because he was rejected, and his life is in holiness. I wouldn't have to do any prophet of God. Now read the Bible. Islam is a perverted form of Christianity. It is a rewriting of Christianity. It is an attempt to craft a new religion, a legalistic religion, based on Judaism and Christianity, but it is a false religion. And at the heart of it is the lie that the Son of God did not die. Well, here is the parable that Jesus himself says. This is what's going on. The world is God's vineyard. The vineyard belongs to the owner of the vineyard, God. And God is prepared to send his Son into the world, not to appear to die, but to die. To actually die. Because without the death, without the suffering of the Christ of God, there is no salvation. It's his death that secures forgiveness and pardon for sin. The King of glory sees his own mission as being to come into the world, to suffer, to be punished, to bear the guilt of others, and die the death of others, and defeat sin in the place of God. Jesus is glorious because he loved you enough to die for you. Muhammad will kill in the name of Islam and tell others to kill. Jesus would die for God his Father. But he does not call his followers to slaughter. He calls his followers to humility and to trust and to faith. Two things we see: the King sees humanity as king. The King sees himself as the Son sent by the Father to suffer and die. The last thing in this story. Our King sees his future and his future. This is a story about God's judgment on Israel and on the whole world. Verse 38, and when the tenants saw the status that Jesus is the Lord promised to them, and the logic is impeccably law. There's no system of law anywhere on the planet at any time in history where if you murder a legitimate owner of a property, you can be confused. That's not how law works. It never has been, it never will be. What hellish logic these people have. Here's the area. Come. Let's kill him and take the inheritance. It's madness. Didn't they see that what they were doing in opposing God and opposing God's Son was hastening the day of their rejection from the tenants? They were hastening the day of their own judgment. They were bringing the wrath of God down around their own ears. Don't they see what they're doing? Well, apparently they didn't. Because people heard this parable at the end, they were told that they were thinking. They looked for a way to arrest them, but they were afraid to come. They wanted to get rid of them. They knew the story was about them. And yet they hardened their hearts. They didn't repent. They didn't say, Jesus, we are unfruitful tenants. What do you do? Instead, they want to destroy the blessing of God. Listen again. What the King has to say. They took him. Verse 39. His Son, they took him. And they threw him out of the vineyard. And they killed him. well. And they became. Maybe he inflicted them on the wound in the vineyard before showing them out. But it's implied that they left them undone, isn't it? They added that to their plan. They want to keep the vineyard holy and ritually important, but they don't care about showing the sin outside like others. And what did Jerusalem do when its king? When it was led outside the holy city at Passover time. And when it was seen to kill in the city at Passover, it was spoil of Passover. But outside the holy city, the unholy act unfolds at Golgotha, the place of the skull. It was left as rubbish behind until his death. So Jesus had a question. When the owner of the vineyard comes, verse 40, what will he do with these tenants? What future does God have in mind for those who behave as if they are God, behave as if they own the universe, and push God out of their lives at every opportunity? And the answer that the people of this time will be in verse 41 is, he will bring these righteous to a wretched end. That's understandable. And you will make the vineyard to other time. You will be the maturity of God in due time. And then Jesus connects us to Psalm 118 about the historical, repeated again and again and again and again failure of the people of Israel to recognize the prophets that God sent to them, the message of salvation that God sent to them, the covenant that God had established with curses as well as blessings. If you break the covenant with me, judgment down upon your head. How will your future unfold? With a funeral, but not the funeral of the Son. It will be a funeral for sin and for death. Because the Son is going to establish a new beginning with new tenants. The Son is going to establish the whole teaching of the atonement and the whole teaching of the death and rising of the Son of God is not in this time. You would have to bring it in from elsewhere. Jesus isn't telling the whole story in this parable. But what he is saying is that for the temporary tenants, their doom is sealed, their judgment is sealed, but God will begin anew, and there will be new tenants. There will be a new order, and truth will explain to you. God has explained everything. But there's enough here for us to understand that there is hope for those who believe, and for the Gentiles, and for Jews who repent. There is hope for the peoples of the earth who come to God through the Son. But reject God's capstone, mentioned in Psalm 118, and you will be destroyed. That stone that the builders rejected is picked up at the end of the building of God's temple, this new heaven and new earth, where everything is temple. And God says, my Son is the keystone, the capstone of it all. There's going to be a new universe with righteousness, not death, with holiness, not sin. And at the center of it is my Son Jesus, whom I will raise from the dead. And we must love him and fall upon him, or in the future, he will be your enemy. And he, the capstone, will fall on you. Fall on the capstone for mercy, or the capstone will fall on you in judgment. The imagery, it's not how complicated really. It's straight out of the Psalms, and it's explained to you. I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people who will produce its fruit, the fruit of repentance. He who falls on the stone will be broken to pieces. stone falls on the top, that's for the top. If the top falls on the stone, that's for the top. The stone doesn't get broken. If you fall on the stone, you get broken. If the stone falls on you, you get broken. It's not the stone that breaks. Christ is the stone. The Son is the stone. Get real, world. Get real, human race. Get real, people of the Jews. Get real, people of the Gentiles. Fall on Christ and let him break the grip of sin and death over you. Fall on Christ for mercy and let him sweep away the rubbish of its lust from your life. Fall on Christ and he will fall down. I don't know where you come from in the world. There's some Viking blood in me and some Celtic blood. Who knows what else? I'm not Spanish, no friend of everybody's in the distant past. I don't think the thing was their blood in the beginning. But 1,500 years ago, God in his mercy said to Scotland the gospel message. I want people like Millie and the people of Canada that God knew in the word of Jesus. To the whole of his life. We have to bless for almost as long as it has been blessed. Why is this person? They were afraid of falling, and they were afraid of falling. And they were afraid of sea, and they were afraid of the sky, and they were afraid of the dead. The gospel simply failed. 500 years ago, God restored the Bible to the center of the church in this world. 200 years ago, here in the Highlands of Scotland, God revived and woke up a faithful church. And it grew phenomenally. That's the period in which this church building was started. We've taught a lot of history. What's our future? Our future is that we will make the strong God loves. And if we reject him, it will go badly for us. But if we follow him, he will change us. He will break us. But he will also remove us. And he will make us fruitful in the service of God. Beautiful. I'll finish with a quote from Martin Luther. You can also explain. If I were God, and the world had treated me as it treated him, I would kick the wretched thing to pieces. Don't be doubtful that Martin Luther is not God, because Luther's patience would have run out at this point by a long time. But the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ is like the Lord of the wind. He gives chance after chance after chance. And then in the end it says, he will respect myself. Do you know? He will. Either in this life or up the day of judgment. He will always speak to himself. Exactly. He will always acknowledge himself. If we repent, we can begin to respect the Son well. If we harden our hearts, we will meet the Son as our enemy at Judgment Day. And we will have to acknowledge him as God's Son and the Lord, but he will not fail. is about the authority of Jesus, the servant king. He is the king. He is the son. Follow him. The capstone, while the servant, if we bless it, or if we trust it, if we trust it. What's how the king sees the future? Lord God, there are so many things in these parables, and as we go on in weeks to come,